What do you make of this idea of a price cap? What the Americans and also obviously the EU are trying to do on Russian oil?
Well, clearly, people are trying to keep the flow of oil and gas coming into particularly Western Europe that is so heavily dependent on it. That's not particularly an issue for Lloyd's. Our issue in the first place was to make sure sanctions worked, that we were complying with those sanctions. And one of the challenges we had in the early part of this was to make sure that sanctions were consistently applied between the UK, Europe and the US. Because as you know, the practice of insurance is to share risk. And if we're sharing risk with people who can't support the risks they were originally underwriting, then that creates problems for the functioning of insurance. More recently, we've been involved in reopening grain exports from Ukraine through the Black Sea. And we could only do that providing underwriting facilities, insurance underwriting facilities to those ships and cargoes, and that's been working very well. The Secretary General of the United Nations has asked us to consider doing the same for Russian grain exports, and clearly that would be positive also, particularly in emerging economies that are struggling. But we need the sanctions regime to change in order for that to happen. So that's work in progress as we speak.
Bruce, the fundamental and the structural issue in the longer term for the entire P&C and the insurance industry is how you price climate risk and extreme weather. How do you do that and mitigate that risk for your clients?
So you're absolutely right. What we do it is by using models. The models now have decades of data. One of the problems with models is that you're adding new data at the front end, but it may be underestimating what is happening in terms of climate. So the first thing to say, of course, is that there are weather patterns that don't always represent climate change, but I think certainly at Lloyd's we'd take the view that the degree of severity and frequency of these kinds of events is signaling something dramatically different. And the problem is if you just factor in the claims that you're seeing, we may not be adjusting our coverage in an exponential way, which is what's happening with climate change.